Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm going to be doing a discussion just talking about the length of books. I was watching Adultish Book's latest video where she does a Friday Reads and she kind of talks about how she was reading the Luminaries and then she decided to just not read the Luminaries anymore. And I was actually talking to her about this one-on-one and I was telling her that I feel like any book that is over like 500 pages, I am naturally biased against it. To me, the perfect book size is right around 350-400 pages, especially for literary fiction or contemporary fiction. I definitely prefer books that are close to that in length. For things that are more like fantasy or sci-fi, I can handle larger, chunkier books, or nonfiction, I can handle larger books because I understand that there's more explanation that needs to happen, so you need slightly larger books. But I feel like in general, once a book starts going past the 500 page mark, I don't ever really love those books. And the thing is I'm not necessarily intimidated by big books. I read big books all the time. But the truth is that after a certain point, I sit there and I read these books and then I finish them and go, you know, there was a good 50 to 100 pages in there that could have probably been cut out. I don't know if that's just because I was a journalism major and I worked as editor, so everything that we create is supposed to be really concise and to the point because you are trying to save space, usually in journalism, because you're thinking about printed pages. So you keep everything really tight and really together, and so that's the writing I generally prefer. I think it's more impressive when you can tell a really great story in less words than in more words. Most of the time, because I feel like not all authors, but a lot of authors just add fluff to their writing to seem better when really it's making it weaker. There is this sort of misconception that larger books are seen as being better books or being, you know, more literary, whatever that really means, or like more important. You know, if you look at the long lists for major awards like the Pulitzer or anything like that, you see these big chunky books and a lot of those big chunky books end up winning, and sometimes it feels like authors just write these big chunky books so that way you can just glance at them and be like, oh, that must be an important book because it's big and chunky. For me personally, if I'm reading a book, I'm naturally going to enjoy the more concise, to the point books. If you look at the books that I've listed as some of my favorites for the past couple of years, they're usually around the 300 page mark. I love specifically like George Orwell, whose books are generally pretty short, to the point, but I'm also a person who never really enjoyed the writing of, say, Charles Dickens, because I always just felt like he was really long-winded, and when you think about the fact that he was paid by the word, you can understand why he is so long-winded, but I just felt like those aspects take away from a story. But obviously these are all just my opinions and my personal preferences, so feel free to let me know what you guys think. What is your sort of like ideal page length that you like in a book, or do you not care at all? Do you find yourself being pulled towards the more concise books, or do you find yourself just really loving chunky books? I mean, again, I don't hate chunky books by any means. I read them all the time, but I tend to notice that whenever I mark a book as my favorite book, it usually is something that is more concise. So yeah, that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching.